Hi, my name is Mike DiBernardo with the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, and I'm going to talk you through a new initiative that we're working on. It's called the Strategic Growth Initiative. This is a new program for fiscal year 14. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through this PowerPoint talking about the high points, as well as I'll talk about some of the other pieces like who can apply, what do you need to do. So first I'm going to talk to you about the program, the need, the opportunity, and then I'm going to kind of talk you through our fun-filled bureaucracy, what we have to go through. So first I'm going to tell you about the Strategic Growth Initiative. Why do we need it? Why is it important? Well, as you can tell from the screen, we're a $91 billion industry. We employ almost 1 million people. But more importantly, we have 10 million acres of cropland. And so we have opportunities to grow our industry more and more. Food processing accounts for almost 25 billion of that $91 billion number. That means there's an opportunity to add more value to our crops, to our farmers, and to our communities that these agribusinesses are in. So today we're going to talk about how does this initiative help you do that. Well, let's also talk about what's happening in the world population. That by 2050 we'll have 9 billion people in this field in the world to feed. That's a 34% increase from today's 7 billion people. So you have to ask yourself, those are a lot of people to feed. How do we do that? We believe that Michigan is poised to help fill that need around the world. So that means that food production needs to increase almost 70% on the same ground as we have today if we're going to feed that population. Here's something else to think about. 70% of that world's population will be in urban areas versus today it's only 49%. So you'll have more people in urban areas than you need more people to feed. So that's a huge opportunity for us to capitalize on a market that's growing and it has a demand for our quality product. And today we export $2.8 billion already in the export world. So we're already exporting products to Canada as well as others. So there's a huge opportunity to fulfill that demand. The next slide I'm going to talk to you about is a quick one. It's going to just tell you that, you know, the governor's very good at asking us to have goals and objectives and outcomes and measures. And so we've done that. And as you can tell, we have, 5 key areas that we're looking to grow the industry and those metrics and measures and how we're going to do that. And so this program is to help us move food processing, employment, increasing access to those goals. So the Strategic Growth Initiative is an outcome that came out of the Governor's Summit on Production Ag held in August 2011. And this was in the response also to the recommendations of the House Ag Subcommittee on Ag Processing. So the SGI, as we're calling it, the Strategic Growth Initiative, is a new partnership between industry, MDARD, MEDC, and others to see what are the opportunities to grow the industry and what are the obstacles that we could help them overcome. So next week we're going to talk about, we've developed this initiative to remove existing barriers and to achieve some opportunities, as I've said to you. And so it really is about what does the industry need to grow? What are the industry telling us that there's obstacles and there's opportunities? We're really good at the state at making bumpers and cars and food. We just got to think about what do we do and how do we do more of it. And we have to recognize that there are technologies that we could implement to help us do that. So we formed an advisory group that the director chaired and had conversations and feedback on what we felt were the key areas that we needed to look at. And so I'm going to show you 5 key categories that we identified as priorities for you as the industry to look at and to provide some opportunity for you to apply to this grant program. So the funding for this program, as I said to you, is new money distributed, and we will use a competitive grant process to announce it, and we will put on our website a program overview document that will give you all of the information about the program. We'll give you a sample application, and we'll give you the sample scoring sheet. So you'll know what are we identified as priorities, what are we looking for, and how will we look at that. And what we're expecting to have is the industry to say, through partnerships, through service providers or other help, that here's some ways for us to help you validate or put together new initiatives or look at new technologies or look at new information sharing that you all can benefit from. So the first of those 5 categories that we're going to talk about today are workforce development. In workforce development, we hear a lot about the fact that we need more trained workers. But we don't need them all in the status that we've always heard of. It's not just college degree people. It's people that have skilled trades and understand food safety. And food safety, as you can tell from this #1 category, is going to have a big impact in the industry. But you're already dealing with that today. You're already having auditors coming in and looking at your facility. You're already trying to pass some of those standards that have been established. So how do we help you establish training programs, get some training programs meant to help you work with some of the existing staff that you have, or even new staff that are looking at those opportunities. Education programs is a second item, and that really is, how do you create long-distance learning? How do you create ways to get people like a certificate on food safety, so I don't have to go to a full associate's degree. I can get working, I can then adapt in this work environment, and the employer and you can then decide where the next set of learning or skill sets that you need to add to provide. So again, it's about partnering with the industry, not just having somebody go away to school and come back, but it's really a continuation of what do we need to do. We hear a lot when we go around and we work with the industry and the locals that we need to reinstitute and regenerate and revitalize internships, mentoring, ways to get young people knowledgeable of the industry as well as participate in some opportunities to learn, is this something they really want to try and do. So we really want to see that happen, but there has been we don't have a connection. How do we make that connection better, and how do we make it at the high school level, at the community college level? How do we change those dynamics? Business marketing, even though it seems it's a little out of place here, we don't market ourselves very well. We aren't marketing our industry. We aren't marketing our opportunities from a workforce development or career. When you think of food safety now, we have new needs for biochemists. We have microbiologists. You have lab technicians. You have people that need computer training. You have people that need robotic training. You have people that need all kinds of skill sets to help you in this world that we're working on. We're not telling that story. We're not marketing ourselves as an industry, and there are some pretty cool opportunities to take advantage of. And last, some specific training to meet the industry needs. We left that as a pretty wide category because, again, that could be a number of different things. So the next category I would talk about is technical assistance. Again, we hear a lot about workforce. We hear a lot about technology. How do I implement it? What's good? What's bad? So the first category within that technical assistance is utilities. Energy efficiency is one of those ways that you can save bottom line. Our industry is a very high volume, low margin industry. So anywhere you can affect the bottom line by saving in energy or maximizing workforce, those are the ways that you can continue to make this industry sustainable. So energy efficiency, how do we make that better? How do we work on that? That's a key area we want to look at. Alternative energy. We hear a lot about alternative energy, but it really is taking waste streams from one operation as an input into another operation. How do you leverage that? How do you make that cost effective? It isn't just about selling it back on the grid or putting it in the pipeline. So those are ways that we can help you try to be, again, from a waste stream perspective, how can I reduce the cost or take something and turning into something well? For example, there's a chicken operation in the state of Michigan who has turned all their chicken litter into a fertilizer by running it in conveyors up to the top of the barn, drying it, and then they pelletize it and bag it. And so that now is a revenue stream for them, and so they don't have a cost of disposal. They actually generate revenue from that waste stream. The other category is feasibility studies. There's a lot of interest to try the next thing or to do something new or to try to do that, but you need to validate, is there a market for it? Do you have the capacity to do that? Is there other competition? So feasibility studies for us are a way to help you mitigate risk of, if you want to go on this venture, does it make sense? The last category is very important because implementation of facility planning or design. So for example, you're a company just landed a new order, but you don't have capacity within your building to do that. How do you change the design that you can be more effective and more efficient within your same footprint and have a better food safety footprint as way inputs are coming in and the finished product are going out? So how can we help you get some service providers to look at that and implement some lean technologies and some practices that we could do and make you more efficient in the same footprint you already have? So the next category is called applied research or commercialization, which is how do you take some technology that people have said, yes, it works, but now you need to make it work in the field. You need to make it work in the plant. You need to take it and apply it in a different way, in a different form than is normally done in the universities or service provider areas. So we've identified improvement of electronic systems. So in food processing, we have magnets, we have x-ray machines, we have robotics, we have all kinds of these electronic systems. How do they work together? How do we improve them? How do we take that technology to the next level? Value-added processing is all about how do we take that technology and apply it in new forms of packaging. So that's the next category. Packaging and processing. If we're going to, how do we take and make shelf-stable product? Most of the world that we're going to export to doesn't have refrigeration. And so how do you get that product that they have the same quality, food safety, and taste, because that's important, to those customers? How do you package it in a way that we can do that? Well, we've worked with companies that have already perfected some of that. So there's already some of that, but how do you move that forward? How do you scale it up? How do you change those dynamics? And we have the top 2 universities in the country on schools of packaging. And so why would we not try to tap into those and really advance that whole category? We talk a lot about renewable technology. Our view of renewable technology is how do you take waste streams and maximize those waste streams so they aren't a cost and an extra burden to you, and we try to move that along. So again, that next category, implementing, developing waste management and recycling systems. If you talk to most companies, brine salt water is a problem, and it's a limiting factor. I mean, we all love the maraschino cherries on our cocktails, and we all love the pickles on our sandwiches, but how do I deal with that brine water? And so how do we deal with that, and how do we work that forward? The other category it's on here is very interesting is water. We have a lot of water. We have 20% of the world's fresh water. How do we maximize it and be good stewards of it? How do we use it in food processing? We know there's a baseline that you have to use it, so food safety is a concern. You have to wash product, you have to wash equipment, you have to use water. But how do you use it effectively so that we're not using up that water in an efficient way? How do you recycle it? How do we do something that makes sense for the industry as well as the environment? How do you balance those? Again, waste treatment options and new systems that optimize new equipment and or processes. So those are all the things that we're looking for as ways to help you pinpoint what's this grant program really trying to target. We talk a lot about value-added processing. Well, really, when you think of value-added processing, you've got to start at the production level. What's the production? How are you going to impact that production? Are there different ways they need to harvest it? Is there different techniques they need to do to allow use of different value-added processing in the plant? So it's about increasing producer revenue, it's about increasing production, and leveraging that into a value-added component. In all of this, logistics is a big challenge. I mean, we have a state that's surrounded by three sides on water, and so if you want to move product, you have to move it south to move it east and west. So when we do that, you have to think about then, okay, how do we grow it effectively, process it, and then move it to that next destination? So it's a huge opportunity for us, but there's also those obstacles in moving more product and processing it here instead of moving it somewhere else to be processed. Implementing approved food safety handling techniques are vital because, again, if we're already being demanded of that. The Food Modernization Act is coming, but that's not what's driving your business today. It's your customers who are driving your business around food safety. It's the Costco's, the McDonald's, the Walmart's, the Meijer's. It is all of those obstacles, all those opportunities that are going to create the opportunities for you to do that. But you need to understand that, and those are third-party audits, those are new staff that run the labs and do the testing and handle the paperwork and do all that. So how do we help you get that and be more effective and efficient in doing that? The last of these five categories is exporting, and I don't have a lot of information on or categories on this because it really is, there are already existing programs to help you as a company, but there are some obstacles you have, and one of those obstacles are maximum residue levels, or otherwise known as MRLs. And so what's the guidance? Because each country has their own, and what's the report, and how do you again go back to the farm and say you can't apply certain things on this crop because I'm planning on processing it and sending it to a certain location. And those MRLs are very important, and you have to communicate that to the producers and what your expectations are. And how do you put that together in a report so you can be more effective and efficient? And when you contract. The 65-cent word here is bioengineered products, and we love that, but it really is GMOs. And how do you feed a 9 billion population? You have to use some technology in your practices on the farm. And what do you do? And so there will be places that will take advantage of it and won't care. And some places will care. But We aren't saying it's one way or the other as a department, as an industry, but you have to be mindful of that, and who are you contracting with, and who are your customers. And there will be customers that will be non-GMO, there will be customers that will be organic, and there'll be a lot of customers that will have no issue with GMO because they have a majority of a market to feed. A small category, but it's an important one, and it can be a real pain in the neck, is allergens. You have to be mindful of allergens, or you have food recalls and you have problems. And so it's about labeling, it's about understanding commingling, it's about production times and when you run one product and not another. How do you maximize all that so that you're more competitive? So what I'm going to talk about next, so those are the 5 categories that we tried to identify priorities within this program to give you some idea of what we're thinking of and how we're going through this. I'm not going to read this next slide to you, but there's a lot of information about the grant. Now we're going to talk about the fun process of the bureaucracy of how do you apply, what do you do, and how we're going to go do that. So, we are going to, so I will tell you the timeline. The timeline will be when the governor signs the budget, which we expect will be in June. We will then very shortly after that make an announcement of the program. So the budget getting signed starts the process. So we'll announce an RFP, we'll send it out to a mass press release, we'll put it on our website, we'll put it on our Facebook, and then you will have the opportunity for 60 days to work with whoever are your service providers, who are your partners, to put together a project to then submit to us. We will use a competitive process. A joint evaluation committee will review the proposals, make recommendations to the director, who will make the final determination. The grants fund, your application should really tell us how this impacts the industry, why is it important, and what are your measurable outcomes that we can all use as metrics and measures when we go to the legislature and say this program worked and here's why. We all have to have those. It's part of what we need to do. Indirect costs are not allowable under this program, and let me tell you what indirect costs are. Indirect costs are the things that keeps your building, the lights, the heat, all those kinds of things that have to keep your building open are not allowable under this program, because we really want the money to go as much to the industry and to the project as possible. What we will accept are direct costs, which are salaries, travel expenses, supplies, things you need to do to make the project work and directly related to the project. They must be legal entities that are recognized by IRS. We don't want the gypsies coming in and getting money and going back out again. Okay, but what we do want to make sure is we want to make sure these are Michigan companies in good standing, and we want to make sure that there's a partnership. If you need a service provider out of state, is that okay? Absolutely. But we really want to make sure this is about a Michigan operation and not about an operation in another state. We expect somewhere around an 18-month window for you to complete the project. So again, once the budget gets announced, we'll have a 60-day window for you to complete it and then send those applications in. We'll then take about 45 days to review and make recommendation and then make award letters out to the industry. And so we expect that then when we do that, then we'll have 18 months for you to complete the project. This will be a cost reimbursement program, so we will set up interim progress reports and payments that will be due with those interim progress reports. So as you incur costs, we'll set up probably quarterly reporting and reimbursement opportunities. 2 applications per entity are eligible, so if you're an industry group and you want to submit 2 applications and then partner on a couple more, that's absolutely fine. What we're trying to do again is to promote more collaboration with more groups so that we don't just get the same groups submitting the same proposals. I have to stress here that this is all about, if you're a service provider and you're submitting an application, it has to be supported by a segment of the industry. Who is that segment? You need to define it. So if it's about fruit growers, if it's about blueberries, if it's about apples, if it's about something out there that's out there, is it about a new process that you're going to do with wheat? That's okay, but you have to make sure that your proposal is supported by the industry. We'll have online the due dates of the application and some of the parameters about how the application needs to look and what format you need to send it to us. We will try to implement, it doesn't go to a single entity. So a single business can't benefit from this grant program. This is about a sector or a group or overarching, how do we help disseminate information and success stories over the industry. So those we will look for and do it in a way that it's not about one company, it's about multiple. As I said, the director will have the final authority to approve what we recommended, and then we will generate grant agreements. Those grant agreements are legal documents that we will both execute and you'll get a copy of. And you can use those grant agreements then to start implementing your project. But let me warn you, if you start your project before the grant agreement signed, those costs will not be eligible. That's the little bureaucracy we have to keep going. Also, I want to just point out in this PowerPoint there are is what's called a regional. That region has been what's established through the MEDC, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, with partnerships at local partners. And so we have tried to identify those regional activities. And if you really understand this regional concept, it really is about localizing and maximizing regional collaboration and priorities. And so we've generated our staff and our team around those same opportunities. So we're not going to spread money on just in every region, but we are going to look to spread money around the state and how does that impact. But we do recognize that food processing is localized where production is, and so there's some of those kinds of things that we'll be paying attention to. And so that's all I have. Tried to make it quick and sweet. I do think it's a great opportunity for you to partner with others and achieve some. We have $3 million, and hopefully we can make a difference in the industry, and we're looking forward to working with you. Thank you.